All right, Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have Pamela McNeill. Pamela is a singer-songwriter and a powerhouse vocalist based out of Minnesota. We had a very pleasant conversation. Pamela is a very talented and wise individual who's been in the music biz and has had incredible heights such as touring with Rick Astley and writing for Yanni, all starting from a gig as a clown. What? Right, exactly. We'll get into that. So, Pam's got a new record coming out. It's called Wave After Wave. It's available on all streaming platforms, and there's a real sick blue, clear, see-through vinyl you can get if you go to pammcneill.com. The record's really good. It's a really well-written pop record. And what I think Pamela does an incredible job at is structuring the perfect pop tune. And we're going to listen to one of these tunes off Wave After Wave. This is Boys Lie off Wave After Wave by Pamela McNeill. Boys Lie, Wave After Wave, the EP. Pamela McNeill is the artist, is available on all streaming platforms. And if you go to the website, PamelaMcNeill.com, you can get a sick vinyl of it. This new EP is just like a masterclass in pop writing. So if that's your style, check it out. Before we get to this interview, if you can rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, any of the podcast platforms, helps me keep talking to cool guests like Pamela and sharing their insights with you. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Pamela McNeill. To jump into it, I wanted to ask you about Mirage, if I'm saying that right.
Mirage, yep, you're saying it right, yeah. Yeah, that was the first group I was in, and so I was living in, actually Minnesota City, Minnesota, but right next to Winona, Minnesota. And I just told the story the other day. I was working at the Ground Round as Bingo the Clown. And so I had the whole rainbow wig and the full clown makeup and costume. And I would I was 15 going on 16. And I would blow up the balloons for the kids and bring the cake and sing happy birthday. And I thought it was my first job. And I thought, okay, this is great because I'm keeping it real. I'm in showbiz, And so one day when I was working, there's this guy playing the pinball machine in the Ground Round. And we got to talking, and he was a college student. And he was Mike Mirage was his name. And he had a band, but they were looking for a singer. And it's exactly what I wanted to do. And I'm like, well, I can sing. And here I am standing in a clown costume, So I got into my regular clothes and started talking, and I went to audition, and I got the gig. And that was my first band. Basically, I just turned 16. And we played all the dive bars and in Wisconsin and Minnesota and some in Iowa. And that was my weekend. It was cool because we got to practice on the weekends at Winona State in one of the big auditoriums.
Whoa.
And so that was pretty cool. And so that was the first band I was in, and we just did rock and roll covers, and it was great.
Okay. So it's interesting. I read that you wanted to be a singer since 3. So
Yep.
Was this the whole angle of performing? I mean, that's super interesting. The first gig you did was a clown gig. How does that's so cool. Because I find as a musician, you say yes to so many different things because you never know what's going to lead to anything, and you never know if you're going to just to kind of strive, always be inching towards how you said I'm performing. This counts as some building skill of stage banter or acting or whatever it may be. I say we or whatever, try to find those avenues in maybe wild things like clowning or mundane gigs giving tours of stuff.
Sure.
Was from that bite as a 3-year-old, were you always trying to find your way into performance, and did that result in doing stuff like that in school?
Yeah, because that's all I ever wanted to do, and I would sing all the time, and that's all since I was 3, I just wanted to be a singer. And then I found out once we got a piano, I had a natural ear and I'd hear stuff and play it on the piano, and so I started taking lessons when I was 8, and my grandma lived next door, and she had a Hammond organ with the pedals and everything, and so I would I got to practice on that and learn basically on my grandma's Hammond organ, which was pretty cool. Um, but everything in my life was revolving around wanting to be a musician and going to be a musician. And then I started playing trombone in the 5th grade, and so, I was just involved in everything. If it was church, if it was school, um, I just I just found my way. I just found my way through it. And it's like anything. You join um, choir or band, or you do musicals or whatever, and you find your community where you're at, and from there, you grow in different circles, and before you know it, you're a clown. No. I mean, that was just like the first job that I could take, and I'm like, oh, this is like keeping it real. I'm not at a desk job. I'm not at a desk job. I'm out there singing for the kids. So.
Yeah. But no, I love it. I think that's because it's flexible. You have to like dive into stuff like I feel like at least from my experience, I started playing guitar, and like that was kind of my comfort zone. Like I wish I was like more like I wish I started singing because it could have opened to like other gigs like that and had other opportunities that you could say yes to. Because like as a guitar player, you're kind of limited. Most guitar players don't learn the reed. You know what I mean? From the rip. Sure. You do that when you're like, oh, I gotta go to school.
Yeah.
So you're limited to like the kind of rock and guitar based field of music or of anything that kind of involves that, which is vast. There's a lot to it, but not as much as like singing. Like musicals for guitar players, like you gotta read. You know what I mean? You can't just be like so right. And there's also that kind of like I think when you are trying to strive towards making music your reality or a creative outlet your reality, there's like a bonus pressure you get because you're like, this is who I am. There's like this sense of self that adds on to like the potential failure.
Right. It's like everybody's saying, well, okay, prove it.
Yeah. You're like, oh.
Especially yourself,
Right. And like a lot of times, like when the gigs fail or flop or whatever, it's not like it really, it doesn't, it's like one hiccup in the road compared to what's coming later, but like it feels like at that moment, everything is gone.
Right. Well, and I was talking to somebody and I was saying, I made a rule with myself really when I started doing it for real, like I always knew I was going to sing, but when it actually was happening, and I pretty much stuck to it, which is whatever I did next had to be a step up or a step forward, like, and it could be a small step or it could be a really, really giant leap, but it had to be forward. Forward motion was always the key. Okay, well, you learned this. Now what can we do? Or where are we going to go? Or what's next? And so just looking for opportunities, and when they presented themselves, if it felt comfortable, then okay, that's what I was going to do next. And it was all about just moving forward with what I wanted to do. And so if that makes sense.
No, I think that's very wise. Was there like an event that kind of like inspired that kind of like frame of thought, or was it just going through all these different gigs and like
yeah, I think really probably the first time I quit a band to get into a band that was like considered next level. And that's it's like when you're in a band, it's your tribe, right? It's like you're all in it together. I mean, nobody can, back in those days, you can't call in for it. You might be throwing up, but you're still going to be out there singing. It's like you're going to have to figure it out, and so you feel like you're really in it together. And so then to like let the team down and just say, to be strong enough to say, I need to move on. It's time for me to move on, and hope that that you can still have a good relationship, and then go to that next thing and realize it was worth it. And I think it's a hard thing for people to do, but sometimes it's necessary. And if you really want to, succeed in this business, you have to realize that if you've kind of hit your plateau there, and and you want to go farther, it's okay to do that. You have permission to to move on. But it's a big lesson to learn, I think.
I I definitely agree with that. Was that like when you jumped to the band Heartbreaker?
Yeah, that was. I don't think I was in another band before that. That again though, the opportunity that presented itself, and and then I kind of moved up towards the Twin Cities from a smaller town, and so it was very big and exciting, But
Yeah.
yeah, but it was really fun, and that was cool because, they were a real working band on the road. We had the big truck with all the speakers and light show, and so we would in those days go someplace and stay in a hotel for 6 nights and play 6 nights, 4 hours, a night, and then you go to the next town, you do the same thing. That's kind of how it was in a lot of ways. So it was, I mean, I was so happy. I was like, what, 18, 19, on the road, eating pizza every day, just like living the dream, and so yeah, that was really a fun. It was a cover band. Oh, we did a few originals. That's when I was able to write a few songs, and so that was really fun.
Was it in the vein of what you guys were covering?
Yeah, I would say it was sort of in the vein of what I wanted to do, which was kind of in the Stevie Nicks realm.
Okay.
Stevie Nicks meets Journey at the time,
That's sick. Was and I might have this mixed up. Did Karen Hageloff also play in Heartbreaker?
I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
who that is. I know there
Okay.
was somebody before me and someone after me, but before me I knew who it was, but after I sort of was on a different track, and I just was kind of far away from it all, so I'm not sure.
Gotcha. They were a guitar player, so I don't know if
Oh,
you were just singing though, yeah?
right. Oh, well,
Right.
I played keyboards in it
Okay,
too.
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I would be out front sometimes, and then sometimes I'd be singing behind the keys, so depended.
Okay, okay. Depending on the tune. And one that's such an interesting kind of first dive into well, not first dive, but first committed dive to the road, doing the
Yeah.
cover the cover act, because it's such a different, I feel headspace to navigate than the original act. Do you find that the same way?
Yeah, it's true, but again, I think the times that I was doing it, first of all, I didn't come from a big city. I think when you're in a bigger city, you have more opportunity for the original thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of everywhere. There's places to play. When I grew up, I mean, I didn't even know who half these bands were because we didn't play them on local radio. So, you do the cover thing because that's what gets booked and that's what
Right.
everybody's doing. And so then you move to the city and it is a different headspace, and all of a sudden it's a different way of thinking, and you're, um, it's just it's harder. It's a lot harder, um, I think, in most ways to do that. But it was definitely a different headspace.
Right. Well, because not only are you performing, but you're performing to a recorded standard of
Yeah.
how this tune's supposed to be. You got to
Right.
find
Right.
Journey's emotional intent and make it your own, and
Right.
kill it like the rec.
Yeah. No. But I think that's the thing that's so cool about it, though. It's a great way to learn what you can do and
Mm,
what your voice is and what you're going to take with you on your original journey, and you learn how to work an audience, you learn how to you know coexist hopefully peacefully with a group of other people, and how to you learn that whole thing, and you learn about arrangement. I mean, you know talking about songwriting, at least the songwriting I like, has structure to it, and so understanding all those parts, it was a great training ground.
okay, yeah. So to dive into the songwriting aspect of it, because I've been spending the last couple of years reading a lot of books on songwriting, and trying to understand how it functions more, and it's becoming a obsession for myself. And I really, with your new record, I really like that. I listened to everything before reading anything Howard sends me, or listening to anything before it, and I'm like, this whole all these songs are the structure takes me from the verse to the chord. Like I can follow this journey. I could pick this song up halfway through if I walked down into it from like a room that was playing this on the radio and be able to follow this story. And like they're hooky and like they're really, really good. And like, but as far as like that songwriting structure, like this is like a master class of like following how this works. And I was like, so I dove into this 6-song. What would you? Is it EP at that point?
Yeah, EP. Yeah, EP. Yep.
And I'm just like blown away with how well you got that down. Like I mean, I know that's years and years and years of working and writing and figuring that out. But I'm like, this is like a master class in it. So I'm really interested to like pick your brain about songwriting. So to take it all back to playing this kind of the cover circuit and learning those parameters for yourself, is before even like kind of getting into learning how the structures and the formulas work for songwriting. I guess vocally, what was like really kind of testing your limit and like expanding your knowledge of how far you can go? Like how can I convey my maximum? My most fluent approach, I guess, is the way I want to say that.
Well, first of all, thank you for the lovely compliments. That's really sweet. So are you talking about just on the record or just in just being a singer and learning, what my kind of threshold was, so to speak, or? Well,
I think starting from like a singer to learn your threshold, because I think that applies to the record.
Right. Okay. Well, so I always had a strong voice, and I grew up listening to Pat Benatar was a huge influence on me, and I knew I wanted to be a singer. So when I was a teenager, I would put on her record, and we had like this staircase in our house, an old farmhouse, and I would put it on and I would sing, and I would run up and down the steps as I was singing to build up stamina for stage. Like that was I would just do that. I was like, all right, I got to be good on stage. So I'd like do that. And then, getting on stage and learning about monitors and how to, work that. But just trying different, like there was different phases of my journey up to being an original artist, really, where it was like Steve Perry. I had photos of him on my wall or posters because he was such a great singer. Like he had this thing that very few people could really do, and the emotion and the intent, and and as a girl in a band, if you were in a rock cover band, you were singing Steve Perry because the guys couldn't do it, pretty much. So all that was great. And then Heart, learning Ann Wilson and how to sing, her, and of course Stevie, which gave me a whole different kind of palette of colors and richness and emotion, the emotion and passion of how she sings, So, and then one of the people who taught me about phrasing, I got into Ricky Lee Jones, and learning about, how to sing like that. So like kind of getting inside the heads of these people and just really, learning to sing it for real and learning your control on stage, which is a whole other thing. All of that went together. And then I got, when I moved to England, I got into some of the bands of I call them the 4 AD bands. There was a label like the Sundays and, people like that were kind of real indie. So all of it kind of melts together in this big pot. And then once you know that you can do these different things, they kind of come out in your music, they kind of come out in your performance and you write that way because you can hear your voice that way. You can hear it in these different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. It's like when you write in your head and you're reading it back in your voice.
Right.
Yeah. That's okay. Because I find that the more you learn from bits, you get these little nuggets of things that work. You start taking like little phrases of like, if I'm comparing to guitar, like phrases that work to get you from one chord to the next. And like little turnaround licks, and then it slowly, like after you practice doing this thing by itself for so long, it melds it into your just vocabulary. If like or another way, like I found to compare it, is like when you hang out with someone long enough, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, that's sick," and then you're hanging out with your grandma, and you're like, "Yeah, dude, that's sick." You know what I mean? Like how the vocab just follows you wherever you go.
Right. That's so true. Yeah, that's a great point.
but as a musician or as any type of creative, that's like a skill to like know eventually it's to trust that process in a way that it builds itself into your own expression. But one thing I find that like really like sets off light bulbs is like little bits that really like are easy to catch and like totally like add to what you're playing, or in this case what you're singing. Was there like from everyone you just mentioned, Pat Benatar, Stevie Nicks, Steve Harry, was there anyone that like who had like a thing as soon as you kind of like honed in on it, like it totally like flipped how you did everything? Does that make sense? Like a little.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think there were several things. First of all, Stevie Nicks, because of the emotion that she put into it. I mean, she has a voice that's so recognizable. I mean, she has her own thing. But she was influenced by Janis Joplin, who was influenced by Etta James. And so I think Janis Joplin, I went years ago, I was sent to this vocal coach in LA named Seth Riggs. And he sort of was the vocal coach for everybody from Michael Jackson to, Bette Midler to Whitney Houston. I mean, you name it,
Whoa.
he's coached them. And I was working with a really famous artist, and I was possibly going to sing the lead on his track, and I ended up writing the track but not singing on it because my voice was too rock and roll probably. But when I went to Seth Riggs, I had told him how much I loved Janis Joplin and me and Bobby McGee and stuff, and he had me singing off the piano, and he said, most of it is up here in your head. He goes, you can totally do this. If you believe you can do it. And he said, you have the capacity in your lungs and your vocal ability to do that. You just have to believe it. And then I did. And then it was like, it became a staple, even in my original shows, to do some Janis, but I just had to have permission,
It's great. It's such a wild thing. You know what I mean? To like, I mean, one, that's so cool. You got to work with someone of that like caliber who's like,
yeah, I know it's really pretty much the only vocal lesson. I mean, I really took in that way. Yeah, it was amazing. I think I took like 2 from him or something, and it was pretty crazy. But I mean, just what I learned from those few lessons was like, wow,
Like it's also like kind of crazy as like anyone who dives into any type of creative performance, like that permission thing, like there's something in our heads that is like, you can't do it. There's like this hard,
right.
It's this fight to be able to do this, and like I don't know if it's the underdog story that's always painted or what, but like to have that like lift, you can like that's incredible, and I like. But I think everyone kind of knows that, but they need that guy or that girl or that person to tell them that somewhere down the line, just to like flip that like self deprecating switch. Like
right. And look at the Olympics. Look at the Olympics right now. It's a head game for most of these people.
Yeah.
It's like all of us. They've practiced, and they've dedicated their lives to it, and now here's their moment to shine. And what's going to happen in their head? With Simone Biles, 4 years ago, she just said, I can't handle this right now, and she wisely stepped back so she didn't hurt herself. Now she's back again because she's in the right headspace along with everything else. And I think even before certain gigs, I have to get in the right headspace. I'm like, okay, you can do this. There's one show I'm in where I sing "Great Gig in the Sky," the Pink Floyd, and it's like the Olympics of vocals.
Yeah,
and
it is.
It scares the crap out of me every single time, because it's such a big thing, and it is so hard, and yet, when I get done with it, I feel like I just won a gold medal. So yeah, headspace is incredibly important.
Well, can I ask what that process looks like for you when you're about to like hit that gig and like do that, like, there's this challenging thing, it's a full house, or it's going to be a good gig, or someone's going to be there, you know what I mean? Like, what's your process look like for as far as like centering?
Well, I do really like, the hour before showtime. I don't want to meet anybody new. I don't want to really talk to many people. I just want to get in my zone. whether that's putting on makeup or, whatever. It's a different time. I'm in a different kind of um, zone level, something like that, just a little bit different. It's like getting ready for a match, or for a game. And so for me, it's just, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's half Zen, it's half competitiveness. It's a little bit of a lot of things. and again, just going, okay, I can do this. You've done this, you can do this, come on, and a lot of gigs, I don't really have to worry like that, but there are a few where, I just don't want to mess up. I just want to be great, so it is getting in that right headspace, and the audience helps a lot. And sometimes, if the audience is great right to begin with, it's just a back and forth awesome thing. But if they're, they don't know if they need permission to express themselves. A lot of times they don't, not every audience is made the same, so then you got to like get it out of them. So that's a whole other thing. But yeah, headspace is just to get into it is, you can talk yourself out of being great just as much as you can talk yourself into it.
I think that's very well said. But okay. All right. So it's like just taking that space and kind of stepping away and pre-planning or whatever and just hit like, yep. That's beautiful. Like, and also I find like if you're in a room with the radio playing real loud and everyone's like, oh, hey, how's it going, Pamela? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm talking real loud. And then you get up there, you're like, my voice is gone.
Yep. You have to be so careful with what you really do. I mean, back when I was younger, I didn't think much about it, but it really can, it really can take a toll on your voice. I used to teach too, and teach at a music production school. And so, I'd be teaching and then I would drive, 2.5 hours to do a gig, and I would, all my songs were way, big songs, and then I'd drive back and get, it's just, it takes a toll on your voice, it really does. You have to drink lots of water and get really sleep is the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to believe that one because like it's been late gigs all week, and like I've been trying to like I gave up coffee because I kept losing my voice, and like
wow,
and like it helped. I replaced it with like cold tea and honey, you know what I mean? But like only because like I was saying, my day gig is I'm waking up early and dealing with kids all day, so caffeine's needed in some way. But like it definitely did help, but like it was like one of those things where I don't want to do this, but
yeah,
Yeah.
You know what? Throat coat tea helps a lot.
Yeah. I tried to, it kind of like dried me out. I don't know if it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. That always helps me a lot, but yeah.
I don't know if I cooked
But the
it
honey and warm water, honey and will be nice too.
Okay. Noted. But also I'm taking a note on that sleep bit because like I definitely like I definitely think that's a thing. Like
sleeping is the biggest thing that you can do to help yourself and your voice recover. And a lot of people don't realize how physical singing is. I mean, it's emotional, it's your whole body, and it's like you can't turn it up anymore.
Yeah.
You have what you have, so it's like being taking care of your voice. It needs a lot of rest. That's my opinion.
No, I'm believing it. Like from this week till, because we got actually on the Ricky Lee Jones, my band's playing with Mike Dillon, who's the vibraphonist for Ricky Lee Jones.
Oh my God, how cool is that?
Yeah. But anyway, so we're doing that tonight, and I'm like, oh shit. Like,
just takes a bunch of ibuprofen, you'll be fine.
Okay, noted. But okay, to kind of dive back into songwriting. So when you started writing, like when you write, I guess, is it a musical and written like kind of thing at one time? Like you're writing, like you have the music kind of laid out and you're writing a melody and words to it? Or are you more of the route where you write the words and then add it to the music and melody post?
Yes. Yeah, great question. So for me, so when I first started writing, I always had a title in mind. And I used to like writing with a title because it gave me a destination. Like, because certain things would just make me feel a certain way, and it's all about how I feel. And I may have had a title in a notebook for 2 years, but never felt it. And then one day I'm like, oh my gosh, these words are ringing true. I want to write this. And so that was how I would start. But I don't write music out or anything. I mean, I can read it. I haven't really read a lot of music for many years, but I either sit down at the piano or I have Pro Tools set up, and I love to arrange, different parts and stuff, and bass lines and drums and all that. Or I'll start with a beat, or I'll just sit down at the piano, like I said, close my eyes and see what happens. Sometimes, again, I love the iPhone because so many times I'll get an idea and I'll just sing it into my iPhone and I can forget about it and then go, okay, I'm going to write today. What do I got? And I don't, it's like, oh, this is really cool. I'm going to expand on this or whatever. But it's not like I ever write anything out. And a lot of times the melody and lyric will come together, like the hook will be together. Like Boys Lie, that's on the EP,
Mm-hmm.
Why do boys lie? Why do they run? Why do I still care when it's all done? I mean, that just kind of came to me when I was cleaning my house one day, and it just dropped out of the sky. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I better work on this one then. So sometimes if you're lucky, it comes together, and sometimes it's just a little phrase, and then you fill it in. I always say it's like raindrops on a page. First, it starts with just a few raindrops, and then it starts to really pour, and before you know it, you have the lyrics done. So it's always the second verse that's the hardest.
Yeah.
The first verse kind of like writes itself, and you're like, okay, now what? So sometimes it just all comes in one setting, and sometimes it takes a lot of chipping away and trial and error, but it's also pretty fun.
Because like with Boys Lie, 'cause that song's super hooky and was like stuck it, like listening through, I was like, that one was drilled in my brain. Like especially the chorus bit, that's but even just looking at the lyrical structure of that, it starts with Why Do Boys Lie, and then you got everything in between, and then it sandwiches it with that at the end of it too. So when that kind of came in your head, that whole melody right there, did that structure with it come with it too? Like knowing that you're going to end up on the phrase you started on?
I mean, I knew that was going to be the chorus, but I knew I needed to explain, what am I talking about here? Cause it just, I don't know. So then it was just like, out on my own, holding steady. I was already moving on. So when he called, I knew better. I should have never picked up. So that's kind of says, in a lot of relationships, you got that, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people have that one person or two people or whatever that they know it's just not good for them, but they just, I shouldn't have picked it up, but I did. And, and it's like, we're right back at square one. And so, it just was a great kind of gift of a melody and a lyric together. And it's not like I think that all boys lie, girls do too, but it was just, it just was like, kind of like, okay, well, I gotta explain this. So,
No, like the story part of it's great. I mean, all of that works really well. It's just like, that's like, I guess picking that idea from that inspiration that came to you when you were cleaning. So it was just kind of tracing that story at the end then, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, tracing it and
And did that look like writing, like sitting down at a laptop typing that out? Did it look just like continuing cleaning and just thinking it out and writing it all down later?
Actually, yes. I sang it into my iPhone, and then I don't think I really worked on it for maybe half a year. And then I was writing a new record, or I was, working on a bunch of tunes, and I was like, I knew I wanted to do it. And so when I finally take the time, on the day that I want to do it, then it's like, okay, today is the day I'm going to I feel like I'm going to bust into this song, and see what's going to happen. And so it just, it probably was a process of a few days, and I pretty much had it done when I had time to focus on it.
So are you someone who writes like on like a schedule, like a practice?
No.
Okay.
No, I know a lot of people do, but my life is so busy. Like before COVID, I was doing like 150 shows a year, and I was, just doing all kinds of different shows. And so I was, so busy, and I was, going to Nashville, and it was just kind of crazy. So I've never really been a super structured person. I've been like oh my God, I need to write. I feel it today. It's like and then some days I'm just kind of noodle to see what will happen, and then something cool will come out of it. So, it just really depends on how much time I have. I'm a person that needs to like have clear, like no one's gonna knock on my door on that day, or no one's coming over to, no exterminators coming over, or, no,
Yeah.
nobody's coming over that day. I need to like have that breath, that like freedom to just not have to worry about entertaining anyone or anything. I can just get in my space.
Gotcha. Okay, like that's like because I've been trying to cram the writing routine in whenever I can, like because just to kind of work that muscle and learn more about it.
Sure. And there's a
But
lot of people who will say that's great,
Well, I was gonna say it's a relief to know it doesn't have to be that way.
No, I mean, I think obviously if you've been doing it and you're working on it, that's great. But I mean, sometimes if you try to force it, it just makes it feel harder than
Yeah.
I would hope it would be, It's like, you gotta, so I guess it just depends on, who, what your life is like and who you are and, all that. But sometimes it's okay to just take a little space.
I think that's also very wisely said. With so with gathering like with just writing in general, you write with a lot of other people too. When did that kind of start? When did the opportunity to start writing for and with other people? Did you like manifest that, or did that kind of chance upon? Like I kind of want to assume it was manifested because it doesn't seem like an easy thing to get into.
Well, I don't really write with that many people. I have to really trust somebody. But if you're talking about like with Yanni, who was a major star at the time, internet, I don't know if you know his music, but new age instrumental. Yeah, so he, actually was playing the Target Center here in Minneapolis, and he was a friend of my ex-husband's, and I'd met him many times. But I had just signed a publishing deal in LA with Windswept Pacific, and he called us backstage after his show, or his concert, I should say, and he said, "Pamela, I'd like to talk to you." And we went into his dressing room, and he said, "Someone gave me your demo. You have a beautiful voice, and I love your songwriting. We should work together." And I was like, "Okay." Here's this guy with Billboard top albums, and and he wanted to write. He wanted to have his first lyric song because he was an instrumental artist, and he tapped me to do that. And so pretty soon I was flying out to LA. That's the person who got me with Seth Riggs, the vocal coach.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, so I ended up, co-writing his first song with lyrics, and went multi-platinum, and the video, the DVD they did for it was, they did my song in front of the Taj Mahal in India, and in the Forbidden City in China, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, wow, like what the heck just happened, in my life? So that was a wonderful opportunity. It opened so many doors for me, and actually financially made a lot of money because people actually bought albums back in those days, in the 90s,
Yeah.
So I learned so much from that, and then I ended up writing a few more songs with him. So that was just a really cool encounter. The way that happened, that was just like you said, manifest. He would say, you need to do all the preparation, and you work your entire life so that when the opportunity is there, you're ready for it. And I loved that because that's really how it is. Work hard, put in all your miles, so to speak, pay your dues, never stop. And then when someone taps you to do something really cool, you're ready for it, you're prepared. And I think that's really true. So that was cool. But I don't really write with a lot of people. I've written with a few. Pam Tillis, who's a country star, she had heard my song player had sent her like a CD full of a whole bunch of my songs, and she wrote back and said, "I love this girl. Does she ever come to Nashville? I'd love to write with her." And so again, just another cool opportunity that was really fun. And then I have a few people I like to co-write with, but otherwise I'm really in my own head. It's a very personal thing for me, so I don't just like, there are people, they're so good at it in Nashville. They'll sit in a room and they have their scheduled time and they knock it out, and I've done that, and it's a real it's really cool. There's a lot to learn from that. I'm just never been super comfortable doing it, but I do it. Again, I have to really trust the people I'm with.
Right, right. Well,
So
no, I can totally imagine that because like just like writing and trying to convey something is such a personal thing, and to kind of formalize it is already a strange, you know what I
yeah,
mean, a strange approach. But when you do it, it makes it so much easier to kind of like not categorize, but present your thoughts, you know.
yeah.
But when
Hmm.
you're doing it with like mathematical wizards, and yeah, I could totally see the intimidation to that for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, these people are so good. They're so good. And then, you know, you just really you have to get over your own ego when you're in those rooms. You just have to like I'm always like, well, what do you think? Because they're so, they've got so much, they do this all the time. And there are a lot of people who they don't want to write a song on their own. They like the co-writing thing. Co-writing is really Nashville. I mean, if you don't know how to co-write, then you're going to have a lot of trouble. And artists like, well, not so much artists, but their record companies like songs with a few writers because then whoever's written the song, their publishing companies will get a little piece of it, right? So the more the merrier, so to speak, and the more chances you have of getting a song cut. Because I'll tell you what, those artists that get songs pitched to them will get 4,000 songs pitched to
Oh my
them,
God.
you know, and they might record 22 and only 13 or 14 make it on a record, and only 10 that you actually get paid for. Like, they have to decide which, if they've got songwriting or who's not going to take the credit or whatever. So it's a lot to learn, and so it's a highly competitive process.
Whew. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That I can definitely see wanting to be like in that, but not not head
Yeah,
first into that. Um,
yeah.
so is like because what's the guy's name? Bobby Boyd.
Bobby Boyd, yeah, one of my dearest friends now.
So like working with him, was he someone kind of in that process?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
This is so funny. He actually discovered me on MySpace.
Oh wow.
He was looking for people he loved the 70s vibe, and he was looking for artists who had that Carole King, Stevie Nicks, whatever, that 70s kind of vibe. And he came across my page and went, wow, this girl's got it. So he reached out to me, and he's like, I promise I'm not some weird stalker. You can look me up. I've got a Grammy for, Song of the Year for Bless the Broken Road, Rascal Flatts. And so we started actually an email correspondence. We didn't even talk on the phone for over a year. And he was so encouraging to me, and I would send him the ideas of, my songs, and he would be like, this is really great, this is really great. And he'd always end every email with, be encouraged, you know?
Yeah.
And so then finally I took my first trip to Nashville because of him, and he just opened up this whole new world to me. And I mean, I was able to play the Bluebird Cafe a few times because of him, and meet all these incredible musicians and songwriters, and just kind of build a little bit of somewhat of a career down there because he believed in me. And that's the other thing. When someone believes in you like that, I tell you, it is worth its weight in gold. It really is.
Well, yeah. To have a hero into some degree, or someone like who's accomplished the thing.
Champion you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
champion you. That's yeah. I can't imagine. I can't imagine that. So you when did you meet? Like when did that correspond? Like was this what point in the
Um,
career is this happening? Is this like first
I
solo
had,
record?
that would have been maybe after I think it was a solo record, Heartaches and Miracles,
Oh, okay,
around
okay.
there sometime, I think. Might have been just before that. So yeah.
Well, just coming from like this world of playing with and writing with other people, and then getting into your own like music. Can you kind of tell me about that transition a little bit? Because like I'm trying to think, was the Rick Astley thing?
That was in the 80s.
That
That
was in
was
the
way
'80s.
before. Yeah, in the
Yeah, that
80s. Yeah.
but what was what was I gonna say? It'll come back to me. But so playing with like backing people, and were you writing at that point? I guess is what I was trying to say.
I was, yeah,
Okay.
I was really a dedicated writer. The Rick Astley thing was again another opportunity. I was living in London, and my ex-husband had been in a band that had a huge, hit around the world, and they had been nominated for a Grammy for Best New Artist and stuff, and so we were backstage at a Fleetwood Mac concert at
Oh,
Wembley
that's
Arena.
sick. To go to
I
the
know, my
idols.
heroes,
Yeah.
yeah. And it was when Lindsay had quit for a while, so it was Rick Vito, and Billy Burnett that were taking his place. But Stevie and Christine and Mick and John were still there. But I was hanging out backstage, and this woman came up to me, and her name was Debbie Haxton, and she had this business called the Session Connection in London, and she was the one who would put musicians on tour with Pink Floyd or whoever it was. That was her job. And she said, "I understand you're a singer." And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "I might have some work for you." And I said, "Okay, great." So she called me the next day, and Rick Astley was huge at the time. He had just had his big hit, and the girl who was in his video and was backing and dancing with him had left to join another band, and so I had to go down to Stock Aitken and Waterman headquarters and meet Pete Waterman, who was they were a huge production team. All the hits were from them. And he said, "Okay, you got the gig." And literally the next week, I was on stage at Royal Albert Hall in London singing backing vocals for Rick Astley. So, again, just being prepared. All those years
Right.
of working in little bars and, paying my dues, and I was, working 6 nights a week, singing, 4 hours, and for $100 a week, all of a sudden, it was like I was ready. So it was, I mean, again, another cool opportunity, being in the right place at the right time.
Like that's I mean that's the dream that happens. You know what I mean? Like, just,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like the hours of shedding and lifting the whatever metaphorical weights and bars to be able to show up at that point. But so at that point you're really into writing as all that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and introducing people to the fact that I do write, but again, I'd only done a few demos at that time.
Okay.
Actually, then the first demos that I did, the first demo tape that I did back in the day, actually got me a development deal with EMI Records in London.
Whoa.
My first 4 songs, yeah. And then it didn't pan out, but I mean, then I flew back to America, and then I ended up getting like a publishing deal in LA. So I knew I was on the right track. I knew that I was doing something right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I got so like looking at it, like I guess coming from like like how the music world's working now, where almost everyone's just kind of doing it on their own. Like, has that been a big switch on how you approach it? Because coming from that very competitive, like getting it approved by so many people, you know what I mean? Like, has that like I don't know. Do you think that's made it better or easier? Or like more mud than water. I don't know.
Yeah. You know what? It's a great question, and it depends on the day.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think honestly that there's a lot of great that we have now. The fact that, the money I used to spend on postcards alone, just with my fan club in the old days, to mail out my, here's where I'm playing, and, and then the internet comes along and you can have a website, and, but again, it's not super easy to, do all that. But now, you just have your socials and you can get it out to people right away. I think everything changed when Napster came along, because people expect things for free, and that's just the way it is. It really comes down to playing live now. There just isn't quite the gatekeepers, so to speak, as much. Anybody can do it, and I think that's a good thing, but I think it also, it means you have to be a lot more select with your audience, or and there are very few people who just get signed and have a worldwide domination. And even if they think you think it's a worldwide domination, probably the numbers aren't what you think they are either. So it honestly comes down to playing live, and the money you're going to make is mostly going to be merch and from just having a great kick-ass live show. Honestly, I think that's really what, and if you're lucky, having publishing, getting something that ends up somewhere where there's some monetary, gain. But it's just a whole different world. Back in the day, they had, of course, you had to pay for it all. But they would give you a nice big advance, and if you were smart with it, you could buy a house and a nice car and be okay. You'd be okay. You didn't, and if something happened, great. But if not, maybe you got to make two or three records, and at least have a shot. And they'd have a huge machine behind you, and there wasn't that many people. There were a lot of people, but not like now. So you might get a chance to get on some big late night shows or whatever it was. And radio would listen. Radio would, if they picked it up, that was a huge way. Now it's so much more local and so much more select. So I'd say it's a lot harder these days to get anywhere. And I mean, I'm fortunate because I have a fan base that I started, in the early 2000s, late 90s, really. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
You have more control now. You have more control, but you need to learn to edit yourself. You need to learn to have people that will tell you, what, I don't know if this is a good idea or whatever. And so where do you find those people? A lot of people like to have people just tell them what they want to hear. So I don't know. It's definitely different, and I'm not sure exactly if it's for better or for worse.
Gotcha. Well, it's fascinating to like kind of see the difference in, like, I mean, actively being in one thing and kind of a foot in both ends of it. Like, when I started playing, there was no chance that I was going to even get close to that type of stuff before it was gone, so kind of living in a little bit of both worlds has been a very interesting, like, at least philosophical, like, thought experiment. But to, like, kind of, like, hear it, and, like, one thing I really admired about what you do is, like, you got, like, 9 projects going. You're hustling, like, so, like, relentlessly, and doing it and doing the original thing, and like write, like, it's super inspiring just what you do. And like kind of to transition into both of all these crazy world flips. I guess bringing that up, I want to ask, like, what have you, like, what's like to keep yourself doing that? Like, is there advice you can give to aid someone who's trying to find their way through an ever-changing world in a creative field?
I would say forward motion. Just if it's in your heart, it's never going to go away. If you love music and you want to do music, realize that you might have to take a job doing something else, but you're always going to be a musician in some part. It's going to be whether you do it as a hobby, or you keep your one toe in, or you go full force. Just keep moving forward. Keep whatever it is that makes you feel excited. Be excited for what you're doing. For me, I'm going to start writing again, and I can feel the excitement of I don't know exactly where I'm going to go, but I know it's going to be cool, and it's going to be different, or, and it's going to mean something to me. And even if no one ever hears it, keep going and keep creating, because I also believe that, creatively, you're putting something really positive and beautiful in the world. Just your creative spirit, keep that creative spirit alive, because we really need it. So I hope that helps a little bit, but learn, meet people that love the same thing that you do if you can, and be inspired together, but just try to figure out what it is that makes you most excited and go in that direction.
I think that's well said. So does that mean on a side tangent of that, is there more tunes that will be added to Wave After Wave? Is there like a full album coming?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. We haven't talked about it, so and we just released the vinyl the other night, and it's beautiful. It's like a translucent blue. There's 2 colored blues to choose from. So I had my final release party Thursday night, so I'm still kind of high off of that. It was just released yesterday, vinyl, and the next week the digital versions will all be out next Friday. But I don't think so, as far as I know. But you never know.
Well, that's awesome. Pamela, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the wise words and advice.
Oh, this was so fun. You're so awesome. You're so sweet, and really, I love your questions. And, just I wish you all the luck.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.